Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page for episode 153, Initiation into Manhood. You can do that before the show, after the show, whatever. We'll still see it. It'll be great. Let's see. As for introductions, my name's John Ruart, past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. Robert Johnson.
So it says here the password to my Facebook account. Sorry. Hey guys, Robert Johnson, past master, Waukegan Lodge, Waukegan, Illinois, current sitting secretary, host of Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast. Thanks.
Thanks, Robert. Pro tip, don't use Masonic passwords as your Facebook passwords.
Yeah, don't do it.
Nick Johnson.
Nick Johnson, Corinthian Lodge, number 67, past master. I don't know why I'm doing the sexy voice, but and the swagger. But anyway, past master, Corinthian Lodge, number 67, big time Farmington, millennial Freemason, .com.
Did you say half-ass Corinthian Lodge? Pretty
much, sometimes. We're country boys, you know?
Alrighty. Juan, introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everybody. Juan Sepulveda from Orange Blossom Lodge, number 80 in sunny Kissimmee, Florida, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
Last but not least, Jason Richards. Bit take.
Really good. Hey, everybody. Jason Richards here. Worshipful Master, Vacation Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia. Member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in the District of Columbia.
So how's the sleep going?
What is sleep?
I remember those days like they were last year.
The sleep is going to be great tonight because my son slept for like 2 good stretches today, which means he's not going to sleep for another 12 to 16 hours.
Sorry to hear, but welcome to the show. Let's get right to Masonic news this week. We have a few items. First and foremost, if you were listening last week, you know that we announced the 300 celebration of Freemasonry here in the States, and that is 300 Freemasonry's Legacy, Freemasonry's Future, where the host of the roundtable, yes, we will all be in Washington, D.C. area this year on the actual day of the 300th anniversary. That is June 23rd, 24th, 2017, celebrating 300 years at the George Washington National Masonic Memorial. We're going to have basically the conference to end all conferences. It's going to be a blast. We're still locking in some of the speakers. I know, Robert, you leaked one of them out. So for those who haven't caught your podcast yet, go ahead. Who's one of our special speakers?
We got Steve L. Harrison, illustrious brother Stephen L. Harrison, who basically is probably one of my favorite storytellers ever, and also probably my favorite presentation that I have ever gone to see was his presentation on Oak Island. It was fun, informative, and it was good stuff. So really stoked about that. There's been a few occasions where I almost got to meet Steve. We always almost meet up somewhere. And then Steve's a popular guy, so he's always got stuff to do that comes up. So we're looking forward to this. He said he's coming. He can't wait. He's super excited. It's going to be amazing.
So if you want to get in on this great event, go ahead and head on over to themasonicroundtable.com/300. That's www.themasonicroundtable.com/300, and go ahead to buy your ticket. Get it now because we are locking in prices now so we can set up some great content. So we need you to not wait. We need you to hop in now because ticket prices will be going up in the month of March. Anything else you guys want to add?
Think of this as a Kickstarter, really, without Kickstarter. If you've got brothers who want to go, the more funding we get up front, the more we can lock in.
Anything else, Jason Juan, you wanted to add?
It's going to be a great event. We've got a lot of really cool things that we've already planned, and we're going to release those incrementally. It's very much kind of a lean startup conference, as John put it. But we are doing it. That's a fact, and it's going to be fantastic. We already have more than one a really fantastic speaker on the hook for us, so it's going to be great. We're going to have probably some Masonic vendors. We're going to have some trivia shows with prizes as well. It's going to be a lot of fun, so you're going to want to be here for it.
Yep.
Yeah, for those who might not be familiar with the terminology of lean startup, it basically means that you begin with the idea of a basic product, and as more opportunities arise, then you continue to build exactly what your customer wants. So that is why it's so important that you continue to offer your support early on, because that is what allows us to open the door to new opportunities and enhancements for the event. So like, for example, right now we do have the conference going on where you'll have pretty much an entire day of multiple speakers, breakout sessions, people that are going to be trying to help you in the areas of Masonry that you are really interested about. And as the more brothers offer their support, then we know whether we can or not also add a private tour of this building or the other building, or can we actually get segues for everybody? It's up to you.
We're not getting segues. Shush.
And you
for
get a
the
segue.
men, for the men that listen to the show, if you want to say, if you want to segue,
Paging Howard Sobel.
All right. Good stuff. Look forward to seeing you there. And obviously, we'll be spreading this out over time. It won't be this long with the announcement, but it's hot off the press, less than a week old. We're excited. See you there. Next topic. We have something from the past Baster. We haven't seen anything from this site in a while. This one was a good one this week.
I thought they publish weekly.
Right. And we haven't had anything good to talk about. This one was good. This was the Grand Lodge of Arkansas announces a travel ban on foreign jurisdictions. In a similar vein as what's going on in the United States right now. It's funny where you can mix politics and Masonry and no one will get offended. By no one, we mean everyone, because there's jabs at Oklahoma and the Grand Lodge of Arkansas restricting people from flying in. It's interesting. Let's check that out. We'll have a link on our site.
Well, and it was funny, Tom on Reddit, so Tom Acousti, who runs Tao of Masonry, he actually commented on Reddit that he was actually kind of bummed out that whoever writes the Past Bastard blog didn't mention the building of a wall. I thought that was kind of funny. So you guys should let Tom write sometime, seriously.
Next topic, we have an article from last week. We decided to pimp most of the TMR event last week, so we're going back to the archives and looking at Freemasonry for Dummies, the blog where he posted about Livingstone's magazine. Now, for those who have been doing any internet masonry, as it were, or cyber masons, as we talked about last week, the Livingstone's magazine was a very popular print and online magazine that ran for a couple of years, and due to the generosity of Brother Hurd kind of giving up the dedication he has to that, he is giving away his entire archive of the Livingstone's magazine. There's some great articles there. I encourage everyone to go check it out. It's through his generosity he's giving these away, and he says basically these things should be given back to the craft. Thoughts? Good stuff.
How much were the subscriptions to that magazine?
I think it came out monthly, and it was only like $20 here, $25 a year. So
Yeah, it was like 25 a year.
it wasn't bad. It was definitely worth the value.
Yeah.
And the content you got in that magazine was very good.
Next topic, we have yet another. Welcome to 2017, guys. A fire that was set to a historic Grand Rapids, Michigan Masonic Center. That's a recurring theme in our show, and apparently on Chris Hodap's blog, of arson attempts at Masonic buildings, and yet 2017 ushered in one in Michigan. So, and there's Jason's cat. Yeah. So, what do you guys think about this? I know Juan always has an opinion about someone setting fire to a building.
Yeah, I'm holding back. I know nothing of this one. I don't know how severe it was.
All I'm thinking is, where's your originality? Setting fires to Masonic lodges was so 2016.
Well, there you go.
I see it so rooted in ignorance. I think it's
Yeah.
just so huffles me that there are people out there that are, I don't know, man.
Somebody's got to put up the, like, somebody just wants to see the world burn, like Michael Caine meme on our page. Looking at you, Downey.
All right, and last article this week is an unfortunate one.
Yeah,
where a 75-year-old Mason was caught in a child sex sting.
Former Grandmaster, by the way.
This comes from the UK. We're still trying to figure out what jurisdiction he was under, but a former Grandmaster was using the Grindr app to talk to what he thought was an underage boy and showing pictures of things he shouldn't have.
And trying to meet up for things that he shouldn't be meeting up for.
Yeah, so obviously this is not even close to the morals of the institution, but we thought it's worth bringing up and talking about because it's completely unacceptable. Of all things, a freaking Grandmaster, this is insane.
Well, it just goes to show that Freemasonry is an organization that's supposed to take good men and make them better, but it doesn't mean it's populated completely with good men. And that's why we have expulsions and people who are removed from the craft. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but at least it's good to see that behavior like this isn't tolerated. Even though other behavior, as we've seen in other shows like racism and things of that nature, may get a blind eye turned to them. And it's my hope that in the fraternity of tomorrow that's taken care of as well.
It's so unfortunate because this is one of the lowest things that somebody can get caught doing, and inevitably it puts a ding on the perception that people, including people that are not well informed, like those arsons that we talked about earlier, this fuels their flames, pun expressly intended. This is a great example of how we need to be careful that we can speak truth to power. If we see someone, regardless of their title, we meet on the level. So it doesn't matter how purple their collar is or anything. If a man is doing something that's incorrect, or you have if you perceive something wrong is happening, it is your responsibility to step up and speak to it. Don't be afraid that, don't be afraid of titles. Don't be afraid of positions. Men are men, and you're as much a man as any other. So don't be afraid to stand up and call them up if you notice that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I can just see it now. This whole idea is going to be, somebody's got to have this up already, like on above top secret, Pizzagate, Masons, or some garbage that's going to pop up,
Yeah, I told you they're awful.
David Icke and his aliens,
Shape-shifting alien overlord pedophiles.
This whole thing, it's a crazy circle that the conspiracy theorists run in. You can. I get emails all the time that are just like very accusatory, and Todd Creason calls them secret squirrels. They're just wild folks, man, and they're gonna do this stuff. And when you see those links being shared and stuff, hopefully, if they're being shared, it's like, can you believe this garbage? But I wouldn't share that kind of stuff. I mean, these hokey conspiracy theories and whatnot. I mean, it just doesn't do us any favors. There's a paper that was read not just too long ago. I think we read it on WCY maybe a year and a half ago, and then actually somebody read it in a lodge just the other night. It's like a short talk or whatever, and it was like the greatest danger to the craft is twofold. It's the uninformed public, and even worse, the uninformed Mason. And you just gotta like inform folks.
That's deep. Yeah. Well, on that somber note, let's go over to something a little bit more lighthearted. And of course, that is time for everyone's favorite Masonic trivia game show, which is Masonic Monday Question
On Tuesday.
Whoa, this is the best monster truck rally I have ever been to in my life.
Tuesday.
All right.
Now I have a new ring.
Okay, I'm done.
I don't know if I can even conquer that now. All right, so our question for last week involved the Royal Arch of Heaven. Those were the 4 veils representing 4 stars. Naming those 4 stars, luckily everybody was able to either find their Morals and Dogma book or a paper that I found, but the 4 are Aldebaran, Regulus, Antares, and Fomalhaut. Those are 4 stars that sit in the 4 cardinal directions, and they control the solstice and equinoxes. So essentially the symbolism behind it is that the 4 veils guard the 4 different major timekeeping arrangements in the stars and heaven. So congratulations to Christopher Croteau, Mike Hambrecht, Joshua Bartz, Britton Heller, Joey Boyer, David Garenti, Caleb Haynes, Kevin Riley, John Morley. Who else? Dave Pritt and Peter Radcliffe. Excellent job, guys. All right, and so our question coming up now comes from our wonderful intern, Mike Hambrecht, who is an incredible person, and you should all meet him. It is, how many presidents did the Republic of Texas have that were Freemasons? And the bonus, name them. When you have your answer, send it to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name, your lodge number if it has one, and the hashtag Iron Fist Trailer. Back to you, John.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes.
It's like if Arrow was actually good still.
It had a good first season.
It
The
did.
second season was okay.
Essentially,
And
it
then I
was,
stopped watching because it started to suck.
yeah, it's DC TV's attempt at making Batman on TV. That's essentially what it is. But
The Flash, though.
oh,
Right, I'm sorry, I just woke up. What are you guys talking
Legends of Tomorrow is even pretty good too.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Oh man.
about? Hashtag
Welcome to comicbooktelevision.com.
It's Masonicon, not Comic-Con. Masonicon is coming up in
April.
yeah, so you got your cons mixed up. Okay,
Dr. Doom was a Freemason.
this
He was a past master, actually.
Oh man, that would not surprise me.
oh my gosh. I hate you all. Initiation into manhood. That's what I'm going to do to you guys tonight. I'm going to get you out of your comic books and initiate you into manhood. That is this week's topic. Let's talk about initiation. We did an episode on the initiatic experience with the very same brother Robert Hurd, who has authored a couple books on the topic, has a couple canned speeches that he gives at Masonic lodges. Definitely worth checking out, where he goes into the history and the mystery of the orders, where these things came from, and how they've influenced Freemasonry today. Well, now we're going to take a more modern twist on this. What is the relevance of the initiatic experience into modern society, right? Why do we have this initiation into manhood, or do we still even have a need for it in the 21st century? Looking at various rites of passages, and I'll just kind of set things up. You have, the penultimate question becomes, when does one transition from boyhood to manhood? When does one become a man? And there are various religious and societal milestones that people go through. Just for example, there are some basic ones of, when you turn 18, right? That's when you're legally declared an adult by the government. When you go off to college, when you leave the nest, when you lose your virginity, that's sometimes when boys become men. Or after college, or after getting out of school, that you take your first job, right? And you're actually now a productive member of society, and you're getting wages for contributing back to society instead of just leeching off of society. There's joining the services, right? There's sometimes that rite of manhood where I'm doing my part as my civic duty to join service. So those are various examples. I'm sure there's many, many more. Then you have the religious examples as well that include, your bar mitzvahs. You have other rites of manhood that are in things like the Methodist Church have, retreats, right? That you go through when you're a certain age, or confirmation. So there are religious aspects as well. But to then start the conversation, one thing I've noticed is if you look at demographic data, and of course I've been doing a lot of that lately, men are doing a lot of those things later in life now. We are marrying later. We are having children later. We are coming back to our parents' house and living in our parents' house a lot longer than the previous generations.
Hashtag student loan debt. Hashtag thanks boomers.
Right. So an argument has been made online, not necessarily from me, of is it taking longer for this upcoming generation to make that transition into manhood? First, what do you guys think of that? Is that a relevant question?
I should start by saying that it's kind of interesting. Every single example that you gave, outside of, actually, I think every example was a cultural or a social constructed idea of going of transitioning from boyhood to manhood. With women, on the other hand, it's a very physical process. I mean, to have menses and all that other stuff, that's a very physical change. They can recognize and feel those changes. With men, there are changes within puberty, obviously, voice dropping, testes dropping, everything like that. But at the same time, it's not the same. You're not going through these physical changes in the same way. So we develop these social constructs, of which you listed a very good number of them, to help guide men. But at the same time, as you said, they're happening much, much later. So it's very difficult.
Well, and again, initiatic or socially constructed initiatic experiences for men have gone back, since time immemorial. You talk about the ancient hunters doing their hunting myths, and the young boy going out into the wilderness for his first hunt, coming back a man. So I agree with you, Nick, where it's very physically constructed for a woman, but there has to be some other construct for men to have the same rite of passage or initiatic experience.
I think that's kind of an interesting way to look at it too. I mean, excuse me. Fans of movies like 300 or whatever might be familiar with an idea. It's called Cryptia, I think. Basically, that's the Spartan ritual where they would send a young child out at a certain age, give him some food, give him a knife, and send him out at nighttime to go kill a helot, which is like another society living on the outskirts there. And when they would come back with the proof that they killed somebody, those kids were given, basically the right to the best positions in the Spartan military. There's some kind of like this element of machismo, right? That this idea that you have to do something where you do something so hard, mentally, physically, you've proven yourself, you've proven your worth to a point. In the Corruptia, it's that you're willing to kill for the state. But what is that modern equivalent today? And it's kind of hard, right? I mean, I think we're really lost. We're a generation that we didn't have to worry, like specifically millennials, none of us worried about the draft. We all filled out our draft forms and without fear of getting called. We didn't have to worry about that. We didn't have to worry about pretty much anything. I mean, the manhood rituals for us were,
Porn.
Sure, yeah. Found your older brother's nudie
Not
magazine.
speaking from experience, asking for a friend.
Yeah, asking for a friend. It's all good. But yeah, I mean, what do we have today? Like what?
We actually, at least in America, we don't have anything. There is not a there's not something specific that comes to mind or that I've heard in which there is a purposeful and sustained practice of helping a man become, a young man become a man. And I wanted to give you the example. In many Latin cultures, for girls, there is the quinceañera. So whenever the 15-year, she reaches the age of 15, there's a huge celebration where they're basically introduced to some of the difficulties that will come with adolescence and womanhood, and things like that are necessary. Not just, we have not outgrown that sort of ceremony. Like as men, we do need some sort of guidance in order for us to join the real world. And I know that there's a lot of people that are filled with anxiety, not knowing, I go live on myself. How could I handle this? Like, most of us learn how to date or how to court a young lady just from our friends and by ourselves, or that used to be more structured. There used to be that community that come together and talk about these things in a protective way. I don't think we have that.
So
like more and more we become isolated.
What do you think, though? I mean, like we talk about the quinceañera, and there's these kind of rituals where you say that, they're introduced into some of the elements of being a woman, right? Well, conversely, like with a dude, we don't really have anything. But what I think is interesting is we use these as a means of a mode of transportation of taking the rules of being an adult and taking like maybe 20 of the rules and then taking them and setting them in your son's hand and saying, I am not going to guide you on these anymore. Now you're responsible for these. And it's a ceremony that's like a handing over of responsibility. It's dad saying, okay, you get 2 extra hours out on Friday, keys to the car, don't screw up.
But there's a huge difference between that organic process, which I hope that we are mindful enough to to engage with our boys and help them in that regards. But there's a big difference between that and something that's structured. And I want to show you an example that I came across. And this is a tribe in Pentecost Island, and they're called the land divers. And let me see, how do I share this? Darn a screen. Here we go. All right, tell me if you can see my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. These tribesmen come together for the specific celebration of bringing the young men to adulthood. The way that they do it is that they take all the young men of age, and they come together to construct a tower. And for those who are listening, they take what looks like bamboo and rope, and they create this rudimentary tower that I would say it's about, what would you say, 50 meters tall, perhaps? And the group also creates a bungee out of tree roots and branches. And here you take the man and you prove their trust of their community. You trust, they also prove their courage. They prove their loyalty to one another. And this is a memorable rite of passage. Like, these men tie these ropes or these bungee cords to their ankles, get on the top of that, and they trust that they're not going to snap their neck and die. They actually hit the ground. They put what seems to be like hay or some sort of greenery in the bottom to soften the blow, but it's still the ground. We don't have anything, of course. But just like with the Masonic ritual, where you have a lesson in a rite of passage that is unforgettable, these men have something like that. But in our society, our kids don't have something specific that the whole community gets together that proves a man's courage or his loyalty or anything like that.
Well, I mean, they kind of do, like, you know, when Jason's kid's old enough to walk in on Jason and his wife. JK, LOL.
That's a very big assumption you have there.
I
I have heard that childhood or childbearing is the death of one's married sex life.
No, I mean, John and I both have 4 kids, so
Fair enough.
at least get 3 more shots. That's it.
My wife just wants to have one.
There's our rite of passage for you. So why are we talking about this today? Obviously, we think that the initiatic experience, one, is important to keep, right? The one-day classes, boo. Slow process, yay. But for a specific reason, that this does fulfill a rite of passage. And actually, that's another data point I was going to bring up. Is when you look at membership statistics of the fraternity, S. Brent Morris would say that men join Freemasonry when they stop playing softball. Right, the average age is about 38. That's his catch line, his bumper sticker. The average age of initiation is 38 now, and that is consistent with this almost feeling of existentialism, where you're like, okay, check, I've got a job, check, I've got a family, check, kind of got good down payments on the house and car. Now what? Right? You're not quite middle-aged, but you've done your basic, societal norms. So there's this missing experience. And Freemasonry fills one of those, right? We're not going to go into much detail about how, but I know, Nick, you wanted to mention about how a lot of these ceremonies, including even the guys who jump off of the improvised scaffolding, all follow a similar pattern, which is
The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, the monomyth that seeks to join all myths into one common thread. Let me screen share this, and let's see, where the heck is it? There we go. All right. So as you can see, this is a version. Joseph Campbell was a studier of all of our mythological concepts, and you know, I'm very interested in the poetic concept of masculinity, and so this is just one of those ways of doing it. Now, you know, we were talking about the tribesmen that jump off of that high scaffolding. It's a very physical process. Now, obviously, in the United States, we don't have that same ability to, you know, jump and into anything like that. And so we focus more on the idea of a mythological understanding of masculinity. And so, as you saw in that hero's journey that I kind of shared, you go through this process, and in Freemasonry, it's the exact same concept. We use a monomyth within our own fraternity to bring the candidate from darkness to light, and it's very fascinating. You know, I have been contemplating this idea since I read this book by Robert Davis called Understanding Manhood in America. It's a really excellent book. It's one that I think all Masons should be getting. And it's one of those that it is this call to action for us to understand what Freemasonry's purpose is as a monomyth, a mythopoetic concept of learning about ourselves. When you're going through the Masonic rituals, you are going on the hero's journey, and it really does fill that space, as we were discussing. It fills that space that men are missing. You know, the book Bowling Alone, which was released, I think, in the 80s, 70s or 80s, described this function of men essentially withdrawing, you know, from their own social circles and societies, and a lot of these men were kind of lost. You know, during the second wave feminist period, women were figuring out a very strong call to action for equal rights, which was excellent. And the problem was men weren't quite understanding what that meant to themselves. And so instead of, I think, looking within themselves and trying to figure out what I need, it was what are they taking? And it's always been that way. It's been this strange fight, and I don't understand it. But I think within Freemasonry itself, we're able to draw out these myths and these legends and these stories, and we're able to find our own path to actualize manhood. And I think if we view it in that context, it makes it much stronger for us to it emboldens our souls in a way. So that was a lot of words.
You know, we were talking in the green room too earlier about how we had kind of given a teaser about Robert Bly, the poet, and you said it was actually kind of a mistranslation because you were thinking of a different poet. Is that correct, Nick?
It was alternative facts.
Yeah. Well, you know, Robert Bly is a Minnesota poet. He's one of my favorites. He pushes this concept of mythopoetic. He pushes the men's movement in the mythopoetic strain. But, you know, for me, it was Joseph Campbell at first. It was this idea that men are lacking that hero's journey, and we don't take that in our daily lives. You know, it's true. I have my job, I have my this, I have my that, but it's just not fulfilling in the same way. But, you know, speaking to yourself in legends and lessons taken from myth, you're able to piece together those missing fragments and putting them together into a nice, clean quilt. And that's the problem, is that we don't, you know, society kind of split itself into, you know, factions and fighting, and instead of figuring out that we need to self-actualize and find those things within ourselves that make us stronger. And I think that's the main reason why we're seeing the draining of manhood within a lot of men's souls in this country right now. So.
All right, I think you nailed you put a bow on the conversation at a good stopping point where we can go switch over to social media real quick. So, Jason, what are they saying on social media?
All right, we're going to start with friend and brother Donnie Dillon, who actually mentions, he's a fan of Mr. Campbell's hero's journey as well, but he actually mentioned some interesting things about whether or not it was a good time to tie in the Terra deck symbolism to initiation and the hero's journey. And I don't know if any of us have anything to say on that matter. I know I don't. I'm looking at Robert.
Sure, yeah. So there's a good amount of information contained within the tarot, but it's hard to really go into because there are different versions of the tarot and there are so many different interpretations with your Rider-Waite decks, or there's 1,000 different decks that people use, right? I'll do the best I can and say that I will send Jason or John a cool link about the hero for the show notes because it's a lot.
More than just a soundbite.
Yeah.
Good. So expect to see that on the show notes.
So from brother Christopher Martone down in Florida, he wrote a veritable book, which I will read quickly / sum up. So he says he hopes this is on topic, but he feels that today there still seems to be some pressure to get new members raised rather than let them spend more time in each degree, talking about elongating the initiatic experience of Masonry instead of necessarily quickening it, or in the case of one-day conferrals, arguably cheapening it. His lodge lets a candidate decide if they choose to take more or less time. It's up to them, but a max of 6 months per degree. He thinks the one thing that plagues new members with their initiatory experience is that when a man first finds Freemasonry in his heart, he does do some background checking into the craft in which he's contemplating getting into. Many of the videos he watches are actual lodges in Europe, so he often gets a false image of what lodges tend to be, at least in the United States. Mistakes made by officers doing, those initiations furthermore advance his interpretation and initial impressions of the craft. One can understand that we all make mistakes, but when brethren that visit from overseas lodges comment on the lack of decorum in American lodges, it indicates a real problem, and he himself has seen that. So the standard of initiation is unfortunately not the same for all Masons, and that can be an issue in the retention of new members as well. Initiation is an absolute necessity in the social well-being of human beings. It helps to fill the blanks of those special needs we all have to belong, to be allowed a deeper interaction with whatever it is associated, and to provide a broader platform in the association of our passions toward whatever the initiation is for. We are passionate beings as human beings, and we love to indulge in that which moves us.
Hear, hear. My soapbox: if you find other members of the craft yucking it up during a degree, you are fully empowered to go correct their behavior.
Obligated to do so.
Take the marshal's rod, take a steward's rod, it doesn't matter. Just right upside the head.
And you can say Nick said so.
Yes.
TMR does not condone violence in lodges.
No.
Yeah. I'm sure there's other jurisdictions, but it's taken seriously. There are codes that have to be read before ceremonies that basically say Masonic action against you if you're the guy causing a ruckus or...
Yeah, we have those too, but when I was new into masonry, there was a blog post out. There was a blogger who went by the name of the Burning Taper, and he was from Georgia, probably still around.
He
Learned
set
a lot.
pigs on fire.
Well, he did one post that stuck out with me, and he called it the Three Stooges degree. And he saw participants of the degree just yucking it up the entire time.
Yeah. Isn't it stupid?
And it shook me to my core to think that this was actually going on, and one that it was socially acceptable by that lodge. So that's my soapbox. I could go for another hour on that.
Let's just like pull that thread just for a second, John.
Yes, please.
How about the goat jokes?
Yes, enough of them.
Dude,
Blood jokes.
RJ, are you saying they're bad?
they're bad. Yeah. So I mean, farting in the prep room, okay. But like, when it's time to like do a degree, right? This is like virginity. You only do it once. Make it special. Okay?
Well, yeah, and it comes back down
really
to
freaky. But the point is there's no goats. Stop making the goat jokes.
And even in the room, that's I find it distasteful to be joking about the goat in the prep room. That is a moment for the candidate to reflect upon what he will encounter now. Like, it's a moment of uncertainty. It's a moment where he is supposed to be doing something that pertains to the ritual. And I think it needs to be respected as such. And maybe I'm too romantic about the idea of how, ritual should be and how initiation should be. But I think it needs to be something that, like, you're hitting on all cylinders. Even if you've done 1,000 degrees before, for that man, it's the first and last time. Don't mess it up for him.
Well, and bringing it back to this topic where, the immaturity that you find within degree performance, and that's exactly what that that article was mentioning, is this concept that we don't really understand the power of the ritual that we're using at the moment. And I've been told by some guys that, well, this is how we've always done it, or worse. We used to do this yuck stuff in the service. I don't see what the problem is now. And I think it is. It's this lack of transition from boyhood to manhood. There's always that joke that, inside the heart of every man is his 14-year-old boy self. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, and it's the idea of how do you conquer it. So going back to this Robert Bly guy that we keep talking about, but he wrote a book called Iron John, and I recommend every lodge should at least read through it once, because it helps you understand just how important these legends that we are conducting and working through are. Is that we don't quite understand that the ceremonies that these guys are going through, it is a transition. It's a transition whereby they are pulling themselves back into understanding what it is to understand their own male self, their own self-actualized person. And that's the biggest problem, this yuck stuff that happens, these jokesters. It's because they just don't, either they're not grasping the lessons or they don't want to. And that's just sad for all of us, because we're missing out on the ability to transition. Even men that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's still something that's important and helpful for them to finally find within themselves self-actualization.
We would be remiss if we didn't mention Boy Scouts of America. And I know that, yeah, there you go. I've had a very limited experience with it. We joined it as a family last year. Unfortunately, the what is it called? The troop? I want to say the club. Anyway, the meeting plays wasn't the most organized. It wasn't the best, but the essence of it, the spirit of the law, basically, takes the place of what we're missing, of that rite of passage where you take a community of men and you are helping bring this new generation of upstanding, exemplary men. And one thing came to mind, this is what reminded me of it when you're talking about the goat jokes and all that. One of the things that really stuck out for me while we were memorizing the Scouts Oath and the Scouts Law is that among the things that you are encouraged to learn, and I'm going to read the Scout Law to you. It says, a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and the last one is reverent. That is one that I had to explain to my kid. What does reverent mean? And if we were to focus a little bit more on teaching our young men that reverence is something that is beautiful, it's important, and it should be part of your edification process, I think we would be in a much better place.
Well, and I can honestly say that's what I called Masonry, was adult scouting, because it really was. And for me, scouting was the transition, the social constructed transition for me, because it was just so, it really did change me from this little Cub Scout boy into an Eagle Scout, and it was one of those that you learned work and all this other stuff, and it really was the structure and being around the dads who were teaching you all their different experiences, and it really was something that helped me to grow into manhood. I really appreciate everything that scouting did for me. So.
Go ahead, Jason.
Just got to unmute the mic. Sorry, getting the screen share set up and can't do two complicated things at once, especially while sleep deprived. So from brother Jorge Torres, he shared something from the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania that says, the brotherhood of man begins with the manhood of the brother, which I think is awful.
That can't be real, right?
It is. It's got the Pennsylvania Masons logo stamped on it.
Is it because you're reading the word manhood as if it's talking about the genitalia?
Alice?
Well, it's not further explained.
Maybe they should go into Virginia. There's some guys that can figure that out.
So anyway, I think one show that we're going to have to do in the future is going to be Freemasonry, a thin veil for phallus worship, and talk about all of the phallic references in the symbolism and the ritual.
Presentation.
Rectitude of life. I mean,
yeah, Freemasonry ... and every other thing in the world.
My favorite line of installation is for the Captain General in the Knights Templar, which is your badge is a cock surmounting a level. You cannot imagine how many people laugh at that particular joke. It's fantastic.
Clearly, the initiatic experience in turning those boys into men didn't work.
Going downhill fast, so I'm going to cut you off there and go to final thoughts, starting with Nick Johnson.
All right, so I really appreciate everything that we talked about today. As to the sad news that was kind of intimated on the Facebook page, I am actually going to be leaving the show. My cable tow has gotten really short, and if any of you know just how short those are, they get shorter, especially with a lot of things that are just happening family-wise and Masonic-wise. So I really appreciate everything that you guys have done on TMR. I'm sure I'm going to be a teameritis, or I don't know, something like that. But, I won't be gone forever. I'm sure, I can be called back. I'm like Beetlejuice. Just have to say my name 3 times.
sheeple.
And so, exactly. But, I really appreciate everything that the Masonic Roundtable has done. I really see a lot of force for good that this show has been doing. and I really am proud of the work that I've been allowed to contribute into it. So yeah, it's been great, and I think it's really fulfilled my own Masonic journey to understand myself, but also to better the craft, which is really what we're supposed to be doing, internal, external. So thank you very much again, guys, for that. And yeah, I won't be gone forever. I still have a blog that maybe one day will get written on. So, but thank you very much,
Brother. It has been an honor to serve with you over these few years at this very unique Masonic experience, and I could not have imagined a different group than this. I mean, these five brothers. I mean, I'm lost for word. I'm still dealing with it. We definitely gonna miss you, and thank you for all the wisdom that you brought to the show. I really appreciate it, brother.
thank you.
Yeah, why don't you finish your thought, Juan, before we all get choked up?
No, it's I definitely understand. There are a lot of things, and but, Nick is very busy. He has a lot of things that he's doing, but he's managing his time correctly. He's making the difficult decisions, and I admire that. So, we'll definitely see you on the regular. I ain't scared. For those of you who might not see him in the show, make sure that you do follow him on millennialfreemason.com. We haven't heard that in a while. And for, thank you, brother, again for everything. But for my goodbyes, brother, thank you all for participating. Tonight we had brothers from Australia, South Africa, Jamaica representing in the live chat on YouTube. So if you're listening to this on the podcast later on, make sure you swing by the YouTube channel so you can also interact live with the brothers that are watching us from all around the world and spreading the word that we've come together here to share. Thank you to, was it Brother Torres that pointed out that my Spanish was showing on last episode? I pretend that my English is perfect, but every now and then my Spanish sneaks through. Thank you, brothers, again. And I invite you to go to freemasonryart.com. I've put together a collection of Masonic art, aprons, and shirts, and I'll continue to share new things with you there. So I invite you to go to freemasonryart.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Robert Johnson.
Sorry, mute. Nick.
No, you were sounding great.
Oh, good. Nick, we have the same last name, so I don't know. There's something funny there.
There can only be one Johnson.
I'll just think of you so often every time I hear you on the After Lodge podcast, since that's what you're gonna go do.
Are you the new Jason?
Oh God, no.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not. Oh man, that'd be weird.
What do you do? What do we say when was it almost 3 years ago we get a text message and we're all in a group text, and this group text is still going and we're all still in it.
3 years this week.
Yeah. And it was just weird, like when we decided to hop on a video chat one day, let's do this thing, see how it goes. And like we're fast friends. And it's kind of weird to do this, I mean, Nick is the encyclopedia, the history. I mean, Nick is literally Mackey's revised history of Freemasonry on tape. He can pull anything out. He'll tell you what page it's on. And, he knows the Constitution really well, too. So
That was page 23, by the way. So if you're
there you go. I'm not saying, this isn't a goodbye or anything. I think, Nick's going to be called up to do an episode here and there when he has the ability and the time, and his blog is still around. And if you want to see him more active than on the blog, then go over to Reddit on Freemasonry, because Nick is ridiculous over on that, and he's a mod over there. So check him out.
Juan was talking about Nick making a good decision by going back on TMR.
Nick, I can't thank you enough, man. We had the time of our lives out in Pennsylvania together, and it was just an honor to hang out with you. Nick was the first guy that got off the plane that met me over at the Avis rental car, and I said, "You're taller than I thought you'd be," and he is taller than you think he'd be.
I always have my camera too short. I look like I'm slouching all the time.
Yeah. But a kindred spirit, we're losing, but not losing. It's not like he's hopping on the boat and shooting off into the sunset like the end of Lord of the Rings when everybody's crying like little girls. He's just he's still on the interwebs. He's gonna be like
More like Blazing Saddles, I ride off and then there's a car to pick me up to go the rest of the way.
So, Nick, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
As far as wrapping up myself, this has been a wonderful episode. Nick actually picked this episode near and dear to his heart, the topic, and it really makes us think about what we're doing and the seriousness in which we do it. So when you're out there doing degree work, I hope you think of this show and you think to yourself, I'm not going to make a goat joke. I'm not going to make this be weird inside, for the ritual. I'm going to make this awesome for the candidate, because that's what we want to do. And that's what Nick wants you to do. It's his dying wish on TMR.
Think of the Knicks. Think of me.
Think of Knicks. Yeah. So if you like Masonic podcasts, Whence Came You? Sunday nights, 9:30. Thanks, John.
Great. Good conversation with Frodero as usual. Yep. Jason.
All right. So I had to pull this up here. This is totally going to be the cover art for this episode of the Masonic Roundtable. Nick with a "Forever Alone"
Yes.
face plastered over top of him. Nick, I just don't know what to say at this point. You've become a very, very close friend and brother over the past 3 years, and it's been an absolute joy, an absolute blessing. And I hope you aren't a stranger. You're going to be an emeritus, so we're going to need you back. Well, we're going to need Sheeple back, but if you come along, that's fine too. So thank you so much for everything you have done for us over the past, and for the craft over the past 3 years, because it's been absolutely amazing. This show is better because you are on it. And we will soldier on and we will make do, but everybody, the first 154 episodes were the best ones.
I like the original cast.
Yes, the original Broadway cast.
Before Becky got recast on Roseanne. Yeah.
So anyway, brethren, think about buying a ticket to the 300th anniversary. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. It'll be great. So check it out. Back to you, John.
Get some sleep, Jason. All right. I think this is very symbolic too. Nick chose the topic, and obviously he and I were of like mind, because we immediately thought of the hero's journey. And it's something that I see everywhere. Once you kind of are aware of this framework, you see it in all sorts of movies, cinema, books. But the basic construct is this: there's separation, there's separation, then transition, and then reincorporation back into where he came. And what a great way to say, Nick has committed to this for 3 years, and we've learned a lot from him and his big brain. and now he's reincorporating back into his lodge commitments, his family commitments, and I respect that and honor that. So good on you. Again, there's always an open slot for you. So see you then. Why don't you round us out, Nick, with a final reading?
Sure. We kind of spoke about in this episode one of my favorite poets, and I do enjoy poetry a lot. Something that, again, as a male trapped in this society, it's very difficult to admit to that. But one of my favorite poems that he's written comes from a book, The Night Abraham Called to the Stars. And this particular poem is the titular poem of that book. And so the final line of that one is, "Friend, tell me what to do, since I am a man in love with the setting stars." So with that, keep searching for more light. Thank you.